So when I was young, aged about 7, started judo. That was like my first martial art, and I was competing in that a lot, like regularly. Most weekends and things like that. And then when I got to about age 15, 16, I've been doing it for so long, I started to just fall out of love with it a little bit. It was all a bit forced.
That surprises me. I didn't know you started with judo.
Yeah, because I guess a lot of people would probably think maybe like striking background.
Yeah, I thought you might have.
Yeah, no, I didn't really. I didn't take up striking until I was like 22, early 20s. But yeah, and then I ended up stopping that because I wanted to go out with like a lot of my friends and stuff like that, and like was missing like the socialising aspect, chasing after girls and stuff. Like all my mates were going out to parties and that, and just wanted to get involved in that really.
Did you go through the belts, the grading system?
Yeah, I got to like brown belt, 3 stripes, which is literally like 1 below black belt.
Nice.
And I haven't been back yet to try and get my black, and it's something that is definitely in the pipeline. It's something that I definitely want to do.
It feels like you work too hard to get to the brown level.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. And I feel like, especially now that I've got like wrestling techniques in a repertoire in that from MMA, I feel like if I went back to it, I feel like I'd have a fair bit of success. So that's definitely in the pipeline. But there's just so many things that I want to try and
What was it about judo that you liked? Did you come across it through?
It was kind of like my parents really that put me into it. I think they wanted me to be like disciplined and stuff. Just all the benefits you get from martial arts. But I think one thing that kind of turned me off from it was like, to be honest, was my dad was hard on me in it. And, he could be really supporting, but at the same time, I went up to London or whatever, and we done a competition, like drove up from Portsmouth or whatever, and I didn't do very well. Say I lost a couple of matches or whatever, didn't come away with a medal. He would like berate me, in the car on the way back home.
Is he from a sporting background himself?
I mean, he did do football and stuff, but I think this is where the resentment came in, because he never done like a martial art, and I just always used to say to him like, look, you don't know what it's like to like fight another person, how nerve-wracking that is and blah blah blah. Because I did used to really struggle with like the anxiety, the nerve-wracking side of like competing when I was younger.
It's hard to understand that unless you do it.
It is, man. And I look at some like kids in the gym at Predators, and like there's one young lad, Carlos, and his dad is like one of our coaches. He coaches the fight team on a Monday jiu-jitsu, Ashley. And
I know that kid. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's unreal, mate. Yeah, just wins golds left, right and centre. But he can look up to his dad, who's like the coach, and it's different then, because if his dad's berating him or whatever, coming down on him,
he's the coach.
And he's like, his dad's been there, done it, and he's seen his dad compete or whatever. Which for me, I didn't really have that, so it's kind of like a bit of a bit of like animosity or resentment that built up there. So that kind of put me off of martial arts a little bit. I think that was definitely a factor.
Yeah. How did you do generally in the competitions?
I used to do well like regionally, and then I think I'd say I used to fall short of like the national level. I remember wanting to like break into the England team, but again I kind of was like 1 foot in, 1 foot out sort of thing. I wanted to do well, but at the same time there was another side of me that wanted to go out, and I think if you want to make it into like any national level team, it's something you've got to be invested, haven't you?
Yeah, for sure.
Your heart's got to be all in.
Yeah. And did you get away from martial arts for a bit after that?
Yeah, I got away from it for a little bit. So I joined. Basically, it was just like didn't have much drive after that. Once I come out of it, I remember I was just working in like a garden centre. Just like unproductive stoner, just helping like old women take like compost out to their cars and stuff. And I went to college and I quit that, and my parents were like, they were really good at like trying to always get me and funnel me into doing something. They didn't want to just see me like come to nothing sort of thing. And they were like, how about the military? And went to like a recruitment centre, and then ended up joining the Navy as like an aircraft technician.
Oh, nice.
So ended up working on like helicopters for 5 years in the military. But even at the start of that, within 6 months of that, I was saying to my parents, I don't like this, I want to come out. And they were like, look, you've quit everything you've ever done, like, you've quit judo, like, you went to college, you quit that within a couple of months, blah, blah, like,
stick by it.
Stick by it. So I did, and then 5 years went by, and I was like, still don't like this. And then at that point they were like, fair enough, they've given it a good go. But the one thing I always felt like in the military is that I was imprisoned, you know. I used to go away at the weekends and like go out with my mates and stuff, and like I was really into like the partying aspect, like I talked about, going to like raves and stuff, and then I'd like return to base on like a Sunday, and it's just, I remember that depression of like getting back to camp and, you know, just being within like a fenced
the dreading going in
camp, and like going past like an armed guard, and you knew you were back for like another week on like lockdown, like you couldn't really leave, do you know what I mean? It was just like pure, it was like a prison sentence almost.
They're harsh on discipline.
It always is, like in the military, you're pretty harsh on discipline. And like, I used to like the job, I used to like working on the aircraft, but I used to hate all the bits around it, you know, like standing on a gate till like 3 a.m, you know, and all the kind of like duties that came around the side and blah, blah, blah. So then at the end of them 5 years, I was like, I want to go travelling. I've experienced like a lack of freedom. I now want to go out and I want to have complete freedom. So I saved up a bit of money. It's like a year's notice I had to give. And then after that, I went basically to Australia. I got a visa to work in Australia. And I started doing like a bit of travelling, basically like earning some money in Australia and then going across to like Asia. Travelled like round Asia.
Nice,
like,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, man.
You're full of surprises.
Yeah, man. I went to like Vietnam, Cambodia, Singapore, Thailand. You know, like all these different places.
It's been a great experience doing that.
Yeah, mate, wicked. It was really good. Like met loads of cool people. You know, like staying in hostels and stuff. Loads of like mad opportunities that come up that we were just taking because there was no return date, you know what I mean? There was no time I had to be back. So it's like, as long as I could sustain myself and keep earning money, which I kind of done in Australia, you know, I'd be able to just keep going kind of thing. But then it got to like about a year and a half of being away, and I remember I'd been in like Asia for 3 months, and at this point, again, I was kind of like drinking, like it's like a pound of beer over there, you know what I mean? It's so cheap, and we were just like out all the time, and I just felt like rough, like my body like just felt physically, because I used to, in the military I was like, I went back to judo a little bit in the military, like here and there, not a lot, but I was like, you know, I started to compete a little bit in that, and I was like going to the gym, I got into like lifting weights, and I was going like 5 times a week, and I got like into, you know, pretty good nick. And then that all fell away like when I was travelling, because I had no discipline, no like routine kind of thing.
Yeah, it's horrible without routine. It's dangerous.
Yeah, it is very dangerous. And this is, so then I went into a bit of a dark time really, because I was like, shit, I've had complete lack of freedom and I wasn't happy. I've now had complete freedom and I'm still not happy. So it's like, what is the meaning of all this? Do you know what I mean? I kind of went down that path of like, what's my purpose? Like, why am I here? I know that sounds like really deep, but it is the kind of like, that's how I was feeling at the time.
So self-reflecting and, you know,
yeah,
trying to make sense of it all.
Trying to make sense of it all, yeah. And then I was like, 2 thoughts came into my head. I was like, I need to go back to Australia. This is when I was in Asia. I was in Vietnam.
Were you working out there?
Yeah, I was working on Australia, yeah. I actually worked on prawn trawlers. I've done like 6 months out at sea on prawn trawlers. That's like a whole another story in itself. yeah. But spent like 3 months like out at sea, like catching prawn. That was like the season. Yeah. And then what happened was, it's like at the end you would get like they would divide the catch up, and then however you caught, if you caught well, you would get a percentage of the catch. Sort of thing.
What's crazy? I watched a documentary around something like that recently.
Did you?
Yeah.
A lot of people go on. What you did say?
It's crazy. This one was in Iceland. It was exactly the same concept. Yeah,
a lot of people said that. Was it like the deadliest cat?
That's right. Yeah, that's the one I watched. I actually watched it when I was in Holland. There was nothing on TV, but that was the only thing that was English. I was like, I'm enjoying this.
It was like that in terms of like the work. Like I was working like 20 hours a day, like only getting like 4 hours sleep.
Wow.
Like first thing I had to do, like when I woke up in the morning, was like go down to a freezer which was like minus 30 degrees, and I'd be down there for like 3 hours, you know, like shifting prawn, because the prawn that you've caught that day, it had to go into like a really cold part of the freezer called the snap.
Yeah.
And then in the morning you had to pull it out of the snap and like stack it at the back, and that could take like 3 hours if you caught well. Yeah. And then you'd come back up and there'd be like frost on your eyebrows and that sort of stuff. So there was definitely some hardships there, but in terms of the weather, it was more it was more like how hot it was. That was what made it uncomfortable. It wasn't like Deadliest Catch. We had some choppy weather at times, but it wasn't like Deadliest Catch where it's like, you know, that's just like next level.
Yeah.
It's freezing cold all the time.
It still sounds horrid to me.
Yeah,
it was. It
was a graft. It was definitely a graft, but it was the best money I'd ever earned because you won't spend anything, and at the end of the season you'd get off the boat, and I was getting like 10 grand.
Wow.
You know, and like that. Then I would go across to like Asia with my mate that I was traveling with. And then we would just like live like kings, really, because a lot of other people you met, they were like ringing their parents sometimes, you know, saying like, "Oh, like, Dad, I've run out of money again. Could you like ping me over like a couple £100 or whatever?" And we just never had to do that.
It must have been a good feeling.
Yeah, it was a good feeling, and we just kind of blasted through like our cash reserves, if you like.
But you didn't do any training or anything out there.
No, so I guess this is like where I'm heading. I guess is like when so got to the Latin Vietnam, was having them thoughts like I don't know. And the two thoughts that come in my head was like, I need to go back to Australia. I need a routine. I need a job. I've never thought I'd thought that, but I thought like I need a job. I want a job, and I need a hobby. I need something to do. Yeah. And then this is when I started thinking about getting back into martial arts. And around this time, this is basically just a really long-winded story for me saying I'm a McGregor fanboy, basically. Yeah, okay. But like around this time is when there was that like McGregor rise going on, sort of thing.
It lit the fire again.
Yeah, and like MMA wasn't really like on my radar, mate. To be honest, like pre-McGregor, you know, I wasn't really. I wish I was, but I wasn't one of these guys that was watching like this Anderson Silva years and stuff. Didn't know much about MMA. I remember there was a guy in the national team, Brett Caswell. He fought on Cage Warriors. I remember hearing about him competing, in like cage fighting or whatever, but I really didn't know much about it. That was like, and then years later, that was when like I say, McGregor started like. I guess like blowing it up. It must have been strange for people like you, like in martial arts, that saw that taking place.
But I also understand it though, because he did bring like a different type of audience into the sport, and he did what he had to do, right, to bring different eyes.
Yeah, and it's weird, man, because he's the sort of person that attracted me. He attracted me to it. Yeah. But now, like in terms of like how I carry myself and the people that I look up to now, it's like so far away from like. What he kind of represents and stuff. Like
I can't lie though, that old McGregor was the one.
It was cool, man.
Yeah, it was the 145 McGregor.
Yeah, it was kind of like, yeah, definitely. It was almost like a bit surreal, wasn't it, in terms of like how he was predicting it and all that sort of stuff. So, anyway, when I got back to Australia, I got a job. I went into like concreting, and then in the evenings, I basically found like a kickboxing gym, or it was like a MMA gym, DMD's MMA it was in Melbourne. Just down the road, about a mile away from where I was staying, and joined a kickboxing gym there, and just like took to it like that.
So you just did the striking first?
Just the striking at first, yeah, and I just loved it straight away, and I was started to go there like every night, sort of thing.
And how old are you at this time?
So I was 22 now. Yeah, 22. So it's basically probably stopped judo around 16. Yeah. And then didn't do any martial arts in that period, kind of thing. And then 22 is when I picked it back up, and I'm 31 now, so in that time frame kind of just gone at it, and like never really took my foot off the gas the moment I took it back, because I always felt like I had time to make up as well, because I did get that awareness of like getting into it late. I know I had a judo background, but when I realised like how deep like the kickboxing goes, the jiu-jitsu goes, all the rest of it, it's like, well, I've got some work to do, if I do want to like be a fighter or whatever.
But the good thing is you already had a background in one martial arts at least.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting as well if you've got a background, I think, with MMA, because at first you expect to like just kill it in that field. Like I expected to, like in the grappling, I thought, I'll be out of my depth in the striking, but I'll just be throwing people around for fun, you know what I mean? None of them a lot of them probably haven't got a brown belt in judo or whatever. Yeah. And just didn't have any success, you know what I mean? Like, very humbling, shit, I don't know anything really. Because people have got like a good wrestling base and they knew how to defend, and it was hard to get in. But
so now that you've experienced like MMA as a sport fully, do you ever look back at your judo days and think, what I'm trying to ask is, with the judo that you were taught, was it practical?
Mate, so definitely what I found is, and I think this is true with all the disciplines in MMA, it's like when you first go into MMA, none of it really works.
Yeah.
Like if you're a boxer, like you struggle because it's at a kicking range and you think you're going to piece everyone up with the hands, but you don't really. You see a lot of guys that come in and they see that disappointment there because they're not having success. Same with like judo or whatever these disciplines are. Individually, I think it's not really enough to come in and straight away have success. But if you take the humbling bit and you stick around long enough, it then like bleeds back through. So then once I reckon maybe about 4 or 5 years in, once my wrestling got to a good point, then my judo started coming back.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, and I think it would be the same if you, like I say, like for boxing, you stick around 4 or 5 years and you learn how to like bring some kicks into the game, you make some adjustments, then your boxing will come back. It's just
I think it's the same with MMA, with Muay Thai and kickboxers as well. Like when you're fighting a kickboxer, it's totally different from when you striking with an MMA fighter.
Yeah.
Because the striking is totally different. Like there's so many different angles. You're using different gloves. The punches are coming from weird angles. The movement is different. So I totally understand that. Like once you start understanding MMA, then you could apply your background to it a lot better. So to fast forward a little bit, you started doing MMA in Australia. How long were you out there for? Did you compete out there?
No, so I didn't compete out there. I only had like 3 months left on my visa. And I just carried on training kickboxing there and like got into the sparring and stuff straight away and absolutely loved it. And then I moved back to Portsmouth and I went back to my mum and dad's for a little bit when I got back. And then I joined like an MMA gym there, Gym 01 in Portsmouth it's called, really good gym. Still go down there like occasionally now if I have time and I go back on a weekend. And just started getting in. Then I started getting into the grappling side of it. Done an inter club, within like a few months and things like that. And
which aspect of it did you enjoy the most? Was it the striking or the ground game?
I think like just an appreciation for the fact that I was aiming towards something now. Like I had a goal, you know what I mean? After having felt like a bit lost, just this massive like appreciation for the fact like I've found something again. Do you know what I mean? And I'm doing it on my own terms. I'm not doing it because I'm being forced. I'm doing it because I want to be here. I think that was a big part of it.
Yeah, it's so important for young men, especially to have something that they could enjoy doing every day almost.
You've got to direct that energy, haven't you? Because otherwise it can go into like negative things, which I think maybe it did for me for a little bit. I say negative, like with the party and stuff, like I say, going to raves. I don't regret doing that. Like I had a sick time like with my mates growing up and stuff, and I really enjoyed that era, like I did, but it couldn't continue for me.
At some point it has to be more than just what you're doing. There has to be something else that you want to do. So did you think about competing straight away or did that come at a later time?
Do you know what, mate? So to be honest, it's one of them things, I kind of knew as soon as I started it that I was kind of like I was going to be professional at it. And it's not something like I ever like vocalised, because I'm not one of the people that really like talks a lot. And it's like, you don't want to make a muppet of yourself if you don't ever get there. But I always felt like in my head, like that's what I wanted to do, just because I was like, like I said, I've got a judo background. Let's build on it. Let's see where we can end up with this. And I knew, 22's late, but you've still got time. Especially when you look at MMA, a lot of the time when people peak, it is kind of later on. So I knew there was a chance there, like I could become professional at this, and I just worked towards that. And I knew that required like training every day and stuff, and that's kind of what I tried to maintain.
So, you didn't have any competition when you were living with your parents, but then you moved to Manchester?
No, so I'd done an inter club in Portsmouth, and I say this to people all the time, like guys that are looking to do inter clubs. I'm like, to be honest, that first inter club was the hardest fight I've ever had.
Yes, sometimes it's like that, isn't it?
Yeah, because you haven't learned how to control it yet. You haven't learned how to harness the nerves and stuff like that, and the adrenaline, and it's like, I remember coming out of that, and it was only it would have been like 3 minute-and-a-half rounds or whatever, and you're just on the gas the whole time because you don't know when to like these little moments when you can take rest. Once you get experience, you just go, aren't you, at the start? I come out, mate, and I was just absolutely fucked.
You realise this is hard.
And I was like, oh my god, if this is what fighting is, like I want no part of it. Like this is like, I'm done with this. Yeah, and then maybe a day or two goes past, you're like, actually...
You forget about that. You forget about the feelings because you enjoy it so much.
Yeah, you do. Did you find that, like, early days were, like, much harder than, like, when you become more experienced? I know the fights are probably harder technically and stuff, but...
Yeah, I think you learn how to control your nerves. You learn to do things in camp that helps you a lot with your confidence and your nerves. Like,
would you have anything that you'd use to, like, calm your nerves and things like that?
I think
techniques.
I think I just try to look at it as if it's just a fight. You know, like when it was fight time, I always just looked at it like try to just not make it seem so big and huge in my head, because whenever I've done that, I found that I didn't perform well. But if I just see it like a game. And at the end of it, it's just a fight. That's all it is. Nothing really matters. People forget about it. If you lose, you lose. You win, you win. I think the main thing for me that used to make me nervous a lot was just the idea of losing. I used to hate that, having to deal with that for like ages. Because you don't just forget about it. Like, especially when you're young. When you're a pro and you lose, it's not that bad because you've been through it, so you know how to deal with it. But when you're young, it becomes so big. You think everybody, like your family's going to be disappointed, your friends are not going to think as good as you were saying you were, you know what I mean? Your coach is probably going to be disappointed. Like everything seems so big.
I think I probably got away light a bit there with the fact that I got into it when I was older, so I was kind of like a bit mature, and I think maybe I kind of like knew myself a little bit more and was a bit sure of myself, so I didn't worry about like my perceptions of like my family so much, if you know what I mean, at that stage. So maybe I got away a bit light there.
You already like you already went through a lot of stuff in your life. Like trying to you're in the process of figuring yourself out as well. But when you're like 13, 14 and you lose a fight, and it's like, oh man, like the whole world is crumbling.
Sure. Mate.
And my first fight, I was so eager to fight. I was emailing my coach, and I couldn't speak English well because I've just moved to England when I was 13. And if you read the emails, like it's just broken English, all fucked up.
Didn't even have Google Translate back then.
I probably did, but I probably just didn't give a shit.
Still doesn't make sense now, though, does it?
Exactly. I just kept asking for a fight. I kept saying, "Can you give me a fight? Can you give me a fight?" And his answer was always, "I'm not gonna give you a fight until I'm sure you're double ready. I think you're ready, but let's just be double ready." And then after 6 months, because I was emailing them after 3 months, and I was training like once a week. But because I have 2 older brothers and they both done martial arts, I was doing it all the time anyways. But after 6 months, he finally got me a fight, and it was a light continuous fight, because when you're young, you're not allowed to go like too hard on each other. Head guards, everything. It wasn't anything like crazy. And I fought a guy called Leaf Target. Leaf Target is one of the best kickboxers. Right. Was at some point now. I think he still competes, but he's high level. And he was really decent then, and I was like a beginner. And I remember on the night before, I had a cold with a really bad sore throat, but I didn't want to be like I have anything. On my way to the event, my coach is like, "You're ill, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yeah." He was like, "Oh God, you sound ill." So he gave me one of those little sweets, you know, just to soothe in my throat. Yeah, and I was feeling all right. I was feeling good. I was like, yes, I'm finally getting to compete. I went into the changing rooms, and back in the days, it was just crazy. Like, I walked in the change room with a 13-year-old, and I saw all these big guys like smashing pads and people like talking to each other in the corner. Like, I started shitting myself. I was so
How old were you again?
13. I was so scared. I was like, I don't know if I want to. Like, I was like, what? This is way harder than I thought it was. But it was nuts. It was nuts. Like when I started to turn pro, you know, like the back room was. People would come up to me sometimes like, "Are you fine today?" I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm the main event." They're like, "Well, like it doesn't even feel like you're fine." I was just always super calm. But so like at least when you did it, you were kind of able to think about it logically in terms of like, you know, you're just doing it for yourself as well. You're not so much
definitely. I mean, we all get nervous for different reasons, so don't we? For some people, it's you know, going in front of the crowd or whatever.
What was it for you?
For me, the fear of not performing, I think that's where my anxiety comes in. You know, when you're warming up in the back and you're feeling really good, and like, you know, people are saying to you, "Oh, you know, you're hitting really clean," and blah blah blah, and you feel like you're in a bit of a flow, and there's always this little niggling thing in the back of my mind. It's like, what if we can't do this when we walk out there? What if we can't, when we make that walk? What if we don't carry this into the cage? that's always the fear for me. But I think it's always going to be like little niggling things. It's funny, just like the little thoughts that come into your mind, you know, when you're in the warm-up area, isn't it? I remember, like, for a little while, for the first few of my amateur fights, I used to get this thing, and I'd be waiting to walk out, I'd be like, next fight or whatever, and I used to feel like, shit, I've forgotten how tight to hold my fist.
Oh, wow.
Like, when I'm sparring and that, and I'd be there trying to figure out, like, do I hold it like, you know, like really tight, or do I have it loose? And you're thinking about that right before you're about to walk out. And
everything is
just stupid little things that just get into your mind that like peck away at you. And it's,
do you feel that you're a lot better at controlling your nerves and anxiety now?
Yeah, definitely. I think, for better or for worse, really, in some ways. I think it's good to have like a bit of adrenaline there, isn't there? And I've always thought about what is the right intensity to come out at. You know, do I want to come out hyped up versus really calm, like Zen sort of thing? I think it all depends on like your character and like what sort of person you are. But for me, I think what I've realised is like you say, like you had that time when you felt like ill or whatever before. You never know how you're going to feel on the day. So I think you just have to ride with whatever energy's there. I've had times when like I felt like I've got to get myself a bit angry before I walk out, and I've kind of like got myself revved up in that way a little bit, and, like paced up and down, and like got into like a bit of a, you know, like an angry state of mind. And then other times that's not felt necessary. I felt like okay to just walk out, chilled, not really, you know. Like I've danced to like, you know, my opponent's walkout music before, and I've been in that kind of place. Whereas like this last time, I didn't even feel like needing to dance to my own stuff. You know what I mean? So I think I just ride with whatever's there now. I think
that's a very good way to look at it, because otherwise you're just adding extra pressure unnecessarily. Like, oh, why am I not feeling angry today?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Just
exactly.
Depending on how you feel that day, just go
with it. Yeah.
So what's your amateur record? How many?
Amateur record was 6 wins, 1 loss. And yeah, I got to like number 2, which I was always pretty proud of, like in UK and Ireland. So won like a title. So it was a successful amateur career that I was pretty proud of. And
then you turned pro. How many pro fights have you had now?
I've had 5 now, 5 pro fights.
So the last fight I watched, obviously your most recent one.
Yeah.
I watched it here actually. It was on. I got a stream and I was watching it.
Yeah, sick man, nice one.
That was a great performance.
Yeah, cheers, bro. It was just.
Yeah, I got a message from Zishan. He was like, "Did you see Chris?" I was like, "Yeah, man."
Yeah.
How did you feel in that fight? Because obviously. Because I've known you for quite some time now, and I know like the effort and the hard work that you put in, and I just know as a character that when you do something, it seems to me just from the outside looking in that you really take it serious and you try your best to do.
Thank you, mate. I really appreciate that. I mean, like, because you invited me on here, didn't you? And I really wanted to come on, but at the time I think I'd taken so at amateur I only lost 1, so I hadn't lost 2 back to back. Yeah. I think at the time when you messaged, I'd lost 2, and like I really didn't feel like promoting myself in any kind of way or really talking about it. All I wanted to do was just stay in the gym and just knuckle down and just stay in the basement and make like solid improvements.
Because that's what's most important.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, and I think, you know, there's a distinction between people that want to kind of look good and then people want to be good, and I want to be good. I'm not, you know, and then I want to look good in the process, but I don't want to just, you know, like flaunt myself if I'm not, you know, if I'm not winning.
Of course. Or if you're not feeling good inside.
If I'm not feeling good inside. So, and one of my coaches, Tony Morgan, Moggy, Advanced Basics, man of many names. When I lost that second time, we had another fight lined up, and I had to pull from that because I had like some knee issues. Yeah. And he was like, "Look, I've noticed some things. I wanna fix them, and I want to do it without a fight sort of looming over us as well. So let's take this opportunity to not have an opponent lined up." He's like, "I want to work with you twice a week, 2 hours a week, and like make these corrections, and it takes as long as it takes." And I was fully on board with it.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, fully on board with it. And that's what we done, and he stuck to it. We were training, and I think a couple of months went by, and we'd racked up like a good amount of work. And he was like, you know, I was thinking this would maybe take 6 months or whatever, but he's like, "I feel like we're there now." He's like, "Do you feel like you're there?" I was like, "Yeah, definitely." He was like, "Right, let's find something then." So then that was when that last fight, that was the fight we took, and I had no interest in fighting like a journeyman, if you like, at 2-2. I definitely didn't want my record to go negative by any stretch. That would have been like a nightmare for me, I think. But I wanted a challenge as well, and I wanted to prove that them 2 losses, there was more to them than meets the eye. And so we took on like an undefeated prospect or whatever. I think he was 5-0. And yeah, that was the challenge that we took on. And
what was the few things you worked with in the camp that you needed to improve on to take the time off?
A lot of it was like, it was in the striking predominantly, and it was just things that, without giving away too much, I guess, cool. But without things that worked really well for me at amateur were now costing me at pro. So whether people had figured them out or whether they were like things that, you know, I was going to too much because they worked in the past, we had to kind of mask them a little bit. Like, not get rid of them in any way, but change some things and make other areas better and keep them as like I think Moggy said once, like he called it like a cloak dagger, like we've got to cloak the dagger, you know, like you've still got them finishing moves, but it's mask it and build other things around it rather than relying on them things. And that was kind of what we done, really.
He seems like a very attentive coach.
Very mate. He's very, very switched on, and he's helped me. It's great because like I feel like he's helped me see like what was invisible to me. He helps me to like see the unseeable, if you see what I mean.
For sure. So how did you feel in that fight, coming out mentally and physically?
Super nervous. Yeah, like you know, I kept my calm and stuff throughout camp, but I think like no matter how much you tell yourself, or how ever like zen you feel about the whole thing, subconsciously, like deep down, them pressures are there, you know. And I think it dawned on me before I was about to walk out of like, shit, if I lose this, if I go, because I didn't think them losses would come this early on in my career. You know, I didn't necessarily think that I'd be like undefeated forever, but I thought I'd be at least another tier up or something, you know, before I started taking losses. So
you just expected better from yourself.
Yeah, I did, and maybe that's overconfidence or whatever. But yeah, I didn't see myself in that situation. So to be there staring down the barrel at going negative, I would have been 2-2 wins, 3 losses. That dawned on me, I think, before I was about to walk out. And I was thinking, if I lose this, I don't know if I'd... Because the whole reason I coach and stuff, I'm really passionate about the sport, obviously, but I do love competition, and it sort of facilitates me competing, the lifestyle, you know? I can earn my money through coaching, and I can facilitate my ability to like compete and stuff. And I was really worried that if I lost this fight, maybe I don't ever want to compete again, because I don't see myself getting as far as what I hoped. And so all this was... It's sitting down deep inside.
It's a lot of pressure to deal with.
It's a lot of pressure. So when I got in there and to do it like the way I did, just surreal. And like a few people said to me after, "Oh, you must be buzzing, you must be happy." And like my friend Rich, who like films bits in the gym, he's got a clip of me like walking out and I'm talking about it, and it's like, it's just pure relief. That's what it was in that moment. It was just like, because I'm not usually one to like run and scream around the cage and stuff, but I just lost it. I was just like, that relief, that pressure just felt like it dissipated.
Now you can enjoy fighting and training.
Exactly. And it was so weird, mate, because it's like, you know, I've been training, you know, like maybe like 9 years or whatever at this point, and it felt like everything just come down to like a knife's edge, you know, like everything felt like it was like riding on that one moment. And I was like, how has this happened? Like, how does all them weeks, months, years of training, how has it led to this point where it's like all or nothing? You know what I mean? I was like, how have I ended up here?
It sounds crazy that you've had to go through that this early on in your career, but I also think there's a sense of pride that comes with that, because you've gone through it already. You know, a lot of people feel that late on their career, they don't know how to deal with it, but you've already dealt with it and you've overcome it. Because obviously, because as a fighter, as a competitor, like, I knew what you said as soon as you said to me.
I know. I could tell there was like an understanding. He knows. Like, I
have to lock in. It's one of those moments. I just have to like shut everything off and just focus on what I need to focus on. And this is why I was so happy that you won, because I knew how much that meant to you.
Yeah, huge.
And I was super happy just seeing it. So I could only imagine how you felt. And you know what it is about fighting as well. This is the interesting part. Like, nobody sees. If they didn't know you personally, they wouldn't know what you had to go through. So that, what was it, like 30 seconds?
Yeah, 22 to be precise.
Yeah, 22 seconds. That 22 seconds is so vital in terms of your mental health, your physical health, your future, how you'd feel for the next freaking 6 months. Like,
no, I've not even really thought about that. Like, think about how small that time frame is, and how much of an impact. I mean, that's pretty trippy.
Yeah, and
not thought about that.
And all the hard work that you put in just to make sure, and someone will look at it from the outside and think, oh yeah, he's done it. Oh, well done. That's it. But it doesn't. They don't realize how deep that moment is.
It's only really like, for me, it sounds mad to say, it's actually my wife now, because I got married like last week.
Congratulations.
Thank you, man. Mad week, like knocked a man out at the start of the month and then got married to a beautiful woman at the end.
That's a success story. I love it.
She just quit now, and don't get better than that. Like obviously she knows, and your coaches and your teammates, I guess, and like your friends that come out and support and watch you, they, obviously it means a lot to them to see you do well and stuff, but no one's as close to it as like, your partner is, or like the guys that you train with, like day in, day out, they like live it and breathe it. So
and also, as I said, I imagine all your coaches were super relieved as well, because they obviously understand how good you are.
Definitely.
To be able to go out there and show how good you are again is a big deal.
And you feel like you owe it as well to your coaches, like,
and yourself.
Yourself,
because you put so much time in and effort, and again, like you said, to them as well, because they put so much time and effort. But
and the thing is, like, I'm not really one of these people that thinks like the universe owes you anything. So I know deep down that like, just because I put in all this effort, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to get the output, and that's scary. Do you know what I mean? Because I know that like this is on a bit of a tangent, but I was watching a rock climbing documentary the other day, and I was thinking like how crazy it is, that you can train for 2-3 months or whatever, and then like your opponent can pull in it, the rug get pulled out from underneath you. But I learned like with rock climbers, some of them can like basically they'll try and like map a route on a mountain or whatever, and it can take, this one guy, it took him like 7 years, and it all comes down to one day for them, and if it fails, that 7 years is like gone to waste, that whole like and
if it's free climbing, you die.
There's that as well. That little thing there. So it's like, it's crazy.
It's from the outside as well, obviously, because I've trained at Predators, and I know Moggy, and I know Gavin, and I know they're super top level coaches. What is one thing that you think you've learned from this camp that you're going to be taking it and applying it to all the other camps that you maybe did differently from your previous camps?
I mean, the weight cut this time was a big one.
Right.
I used a nutritionist, Weight Warrior Nutrition. They helped guide me through like the weight loss process, because I was walking around a bit heavy this time. And the fight before, I didn't have like my weight cut and stuff dialed in as well. It actually went tits up, to be fair. I can talk about that actually. The fight before, because usually I think like once I get to weigh in, that's that part done, right? And now I've got to look forward to the fight. Like everything else is going to go smoothly. I get to eat great. That time I got to weight fine and I didn't have any issues. It was after the weigh-in.
Right.
Everything went pear-shaped, and I think it was down to like poor for me, but my first meal choice was like a burger and chips.
Wow.
And I think when you've been dehydrated, and what I've realised is a golden rule now with weight cutting is don't eat anything that you didn't eat for the entire camp. So I hadn't touched burger and chips for 6 weeks. that was my first thing to go and do. Was like, right, I can, because I just thought it was all fuel. You know what I mean? I'd never had any problems in the past.
Yeah.
So I can just get everything back on board now, the carbs and stuff. But then that triggered something in my stomach where every time I tried to put food back in, and you know how important it is to get like the carbs and the weight back on for like water absorption, it was just coming straight at me. And you know, I was like on the toilet, mate, all day. The day before the fight, 24, and then I was like, okay, this isn't great, but hopefully, you know, when I wake up tomorrow morning. But I was up all through the night, going to the toilet again. In the morning, going to the toilet, and I was like, shit, this is bad. And I rang Sam Spencer, and he was like, you just need plugging up, bro. He's like, go out and get some Imodium or whatever. Yeah. So I did. I'd never taken Imodium before in my life. Yeah. So I went out and I got some Imodium. That didn't do anything. Right. And I think between the weigh-in and the fight, I must have gone to the toilet maybe about 30 to 40 times.
Wow.
And I'd put nothing back on. I hadn't gained any weight.
What was the drinking water like?
It was coming out of my arse, mate, to be honest. Yeah, it was just like it was just like water.
Just dehydrated the whole time.
Yeah. Oh. I put probably 0.5 kilo on for the fight. I remember getting to the venue, and it was the best venue that I've kind of fought at. It was the Olympia in Liverpool, cool little theatre. And I was like looking round, taking it all in, and I was like trying to enjoy the moment a little bit, and just like, oh, this is sick kind of thing. Like, and then as I was having that thought, I was like, fuck, I've got to sit down. And I sat down, and my stomach was just cramping so bad that I was like bent over.
Really? This is on
and I was thinking, this was like a couple of hours before I was meant to be fighting. Again, this thing of like, oh, once I start warming up, it'll disappear. And I remember like, one thing I think you always feel like after you've rehydrated and that is you feel like a bit of a superhero. Yeah. You know, like because you've been so like depleted.
You start seeing things properly again.
Yeah, you know? When you start warming up, you just feel like proper charged up, and like your muscles are like massive. You look in the mirror, you feel like you're 10 times the size or whatever. I remember catching myself in the mirror, and I just remember thinking like, this is when I was warming up. I was like, you look like shit. Like you look terrible. Obviously, that's not a great place to be mentally before you walk out. And when I got out there, I remember the guy in Impossible Weight, he was like getting in the cage, and he had like wings like tattooed on his back, and he looked massive, mate. And I was fighting like at a catch weight, like a weight division above. Oh, okay. And he was just massive, like rehydrated really well. And I was just thinking like, right, here we go then. And then got in there, and my cardio is like always on point. Like I don't cut any corners with like my runs, like my sprints or whatever.
Well, your style is necessary because you move around.
High output and volume, yeah. So anyway, got into it the first round, and then the round finishes, and I remember Gav come in the cage, and I'm like leaning on the cage. And I've never really had like negative body language like in between a round before, especially not the first and second round. Yeah. And I must have not been looking great because Gav come in, he was like, oh, how you feeling kind of thing. And I was just like, I'm absolutely fucked, Gav. Like,
yeah, there's a horrible feeling after the first round.
Yeah, I was like, just exhausted, you know what I mean? I'd barely even got going. And then, anyway, so go back into the second round, and I was like, I remember, mate, I was moving around on the outside, and as I was moving around, like trying to get away from him a little bit, I've like pooed myself in the cage.
Really?
Yeah, like.
That's a lot to deal with.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. About 3 times or whatever in the cage. And then he ended up finishing me, and it was a really nice finish. And that's the thing, like, not to take any away from him, because it was really technical, like the way he got the finish and stuff. Yeah. And like, you know, probably, even if I felt great, if he'd have hit that technique on me, maybe I probably wouldn't have had any answers to it anyway.
Yeah. It plays a massive difference on how you feel mentally and physically, obviously. But
and so that played in as well to that. You know, the next fight, that one that I won in 22 seconds, because I was worried about, you know, am I going to get this weight cut right? Is it going to go like that again?
Yeah, it's another pressure.
Yeah, and it's another pressure, and I was just like, I think even that experience alone, for a lot of people, maybe they would have thought, I'm not sure if I want to ever fight again. You know what I mean? If that's what can happen.
But you're built different though, because just from your story, hearing your story, it seems like by the time you turn to a professional fight, you've already been through so much that you kind of just learn to overcome things, don't you?
Yeah. But this is the thing. It's like there was a part of me that was like, just deal with whatever comes, kind of thing. And I was disappointed in myself even then, because I was like, I feel like the best athletes figure out ways to get through them things, and I was disappointed at myself that I couldn't win. You know, even having gone through that, I was like massively disappointed in myself, because I felt like if you want to be top tier, you've got to deal with them things, like no matter what. So I was really, like I say, just a bit gutted really in that sense.
But I think we find is when you're dealing with something like that, there is nothing that you could look to for an escape. Like, say if it was a football match and you're feeling like that in a football match, you just get out and you get someone else to jump in. But you can't do that in a fight. And also, you're not just fighting some casual person. You're fighting another fighter who's prepared 8 weeks to take your head off. So there's a lot to deal with on top of everything else internally.
I think going forward, that's one where I would actually draw a line there now. I think if my weight cut ever went like that again, and I don't think it would, because I'm not going to be as stupid as that, especially in terms of my meal choices and that, I'm going to do everything properly. But maybe you would think again about stepping in or whatever. But like I say, I've got things dialed in now, and you learn from your mistakes, don't you? And I think that had never happened to me before. And I'd made pretty similar. I always used to go out for Nando's and that after, and I've always gotten away with it. So that's the thing. How can you, until you've made them mistakes? Maybe if you were there, how
don't be doing that.
I'm dialed in. You have your guys and that. Maybe you would have come down on me if I'd have told you I was getting a burger and chips.
I always tell people all the time, experience is the best teacher. Sometimes. Even when you say the same thing over and over again to someone, you become background noise, because it's hard to learn from.
That's so true. That's so true. Experience is everything, and everything.
Exactly. And you're in a sport that I always tell people as well, like MMA, and with any martial arts really, is like learning a language. The more you do it, the better you're going to be at it. And you just have to do it. There's no shortcut. You won't just wake up one day and decide to speak French and just fucking do it in a week. You have to learn French and then go out there and speak French and do it's the same thing. So you have to go through all the steps in order to become a complete fighter. I feel like because you've gone through so much in your early days as a pro, it could almost only go up from here.
That's kind of what it feels like.
So everything else is a win, and it must feel like you've gone through such a rough patch that you've kind of almost... Do you feel like you could just leave that in the past now and just start from here,
rebuild
fresh?
Momentum, and it's all about momentum, and it's about getting back on track. And I feel like I say, I don't want anyone to think that I've got one foot out the door when I say things like, if I'd have got 3 losses, then I don't know where I'd be in the sport or whether I'd want to carry on. Because I'm not. I'm all in. That's the thing. I'm fully invested. I want to go all the way. But it's getting that win is important in terms of putting you back on track, and then getting back to winning ways, I guess.
You get that confidence again as well.
Yeah, exactly. Because it was a massive confidence knock taken to... like I said, I can have my excuses and stuff, and you can say this happened, that happened. 2 losses is 2 losses at the end of the day. It's that's going to affect... That affects your psyche, whether you can feel like you can brave it out or not. But
no matter how many times people tell you belong there, you'll question yourself.
Exactly. And I remember telling a few people after the fight that story about the weight cut, and then I stopped after a while because I was like, you're just making an excuse, and I felt like I was weakening my psyche, if you like, by just saying that story. Because it's like you're just coming up with an excuse.
Yeah, because you've heard people do that, right?
But it's the truth. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's what happened. So it's a bit of a weird story that not many people have had. So I kind of was telling it, and then I was like, I just got sick of making excuses.
Well, the good thing is you recognize that even if you didn't go through that, you could have potentially lost with the same type of finish.
Yeah, for sure.
Because that's the reality of it, right? Your excuse is legit.
Yeah.
You went through some shit that made compromise your situations, but you're still not oblivious to the fact that you could have lost regardless.
Yeah, of course.
So I was gonna ask you, what was your best performance and what's your worst performance? But I think we've answered that already.
Yeah.
So would you say your best performance is the most recent one?
Yeah, I think we've covered them too in a nutshell. Yeah, the best and the worst. Yeah.
So what's the next step? What's your goal? Do you have a goal for end of this year, or do you have a bunch of goals for next year?
Yeah, so I was looking, Cage Steel, we're going to look at giving me a title fight after that, which I really wanted to do. Really enjoyed fighting on that show.
Is that bantamweight?
Flyweight title. But I've pulled from that now. Not pulled because I haven't even got an opponent yet, but I've sustained like an injury, and I'm just going to have to, I can't really commit to a camp for that title fight, which is a shame. So that was going to be the aim for the end of the year. So it's looking like potentially just, rest up over, the next couple of months or whatever, and then look at starting next year, just taking what's there, mate, really, and just keep looking for challenges in it. That's the thing.
I think it's a smart way to do it, because sometimes it's like when you see a good opportunity, it's hard to turn down, but you have to like try and outweigh the situation, right?
Definitely. And I think it's different. Like if I had an opponent and I was like, and it happened in the midst of camp, then you push through things, don't you? Like that's just camp. Like you have to, if it's really bad, you have to pull. But I mean, like generally speaking, like I've never really done that when I've been deep into a camp. I've never pulled from a fight before, when I was actually in a camp. So it's like,
take it as it comes.
Yeah, take it as it comes.
Yeah, I'm glad that you enjoying the sport the way that you deserve to enjoy it, because at the end of the day, it's very important to know you're doing it because you like it, you enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it's easy to forget that when you have so much shit to deal with that comes with just being a fighter. Yeah. And sometimes it's nice to just think, I just want to go to the gym. This is why I've really, it's been crazy, because I've enjoyed not having any fights and not fighting and not having that on my radar, because I get to focus on my fighters, coach full time, and just enjoy any type of training that I want to train. Like if I want to just do weights, I just do weights. Like if I want to get back to kickboxing, I just do kickboxing. Like it's nice to just be able to train with no pressure. Yeah. But because I'm a competitor inside, I always feel like something is
especially because you're so close to it as well. You're going to shows, you're like right there at like ringside giving advice. And it's
I'm
like,
sparring with my guys.
You're so close you can almost taste it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like it's a constant battle. But I think the other thing that you're doing that's really good is coaching as well, because I was having this conversation with Demon actually when he was on a podcast, when he's starting to coach a little bit now, and when you start coaching, you realize you do certain things or why you do certain things in a way that you do it. So in turn, it elevates your game anyways. Yeah,
that was a really like unforeseen kind of benefit of getting into coaching, to be honest, because I just kind of done it as a bit of a means to an end at first. So, like it was better than what I was working full time. So it's like, oh cool, like, I'm gonna get to like coach people something I'm passionate about. So that's always good. But I didn't realise how much I would learn from doing it. It's crazy. Like, where do you think that comes from? Is that because you're like having to like constantly brush up and watch techniques and like do you think you've got to try and understand things at a deeper level because you want to coach it? Do you reckon that's where that improvement comes?
For sure. I think sometimes as a fighter, because like you said, we just spoke about, there's so much to deal with. You kind of almost like a soldier that just responds to orders. So when you're told to do,
and I kind of like being like that in a way.
Same. That's one of the best things about being a fighter. It's like you're told what to do and you just do it. Especially if you trust your coaches and stuff.
Especially with a military background, mate. Like myself, it's like you're just used to taking orders for 5 years, so it's just like
it makes a good student.
It's like, yes sir, I'll do that. Throw me in.
You don't have to worry too much about why you're doing it. But when you're a coach, you have the sense of responsibility of when I teach something, I always feel responsible to make sure that thing works, because I can't just give an order like not knowing why I'm giving it. So like that forces me to think about techniques and the game on a deeper level, and I've enjoyed that the most about coaching. That leads to my next question perfectly. What is one thing that you love about coaching the most?
Seeing other people's development. Obviously that's good, that's really satisfying. And I think just being a fighter, it is a pretty selfish existence. And it's nice to be able to like direct a bit of your energy towards someone else rather than just yourself all the time. I think that's important. Camp, yeah, you've kind of got to be a bit selfish, but I wouldn't say that comes naturally to me as such. Maybe if you ask people around me, maybe they say something different, but I'd hope not anyway. I think like I like to invest in other people as well, yeah, and I think it's nice to be balanced in that respect, you know, like I like focusing on myself, I like being in a camp, I love like, that's one thing I've realised as well is, you know, like, yeah, these big highs are great, right, like getting that win and stuff, like that huge high, but it's almost too much, and it's like it knocks me completely out of sync, out of balance, and especially after a fight, you know, like you know, eat all the food, like you just, you know, you start eating crap or whatever, you know, you're in like celebration mode almost. But when I'm at my happiest, when I'm at my most content is when I'm just in camp and I'm just like working towards being like elite, basically, you know, you just feel like you're working towards being in like elite shape. Like that's such a privilege, man, to be like able-bodied and to be able to just like get to fight day and just be like, you know, as fit as you are and as capable as you are. So I do love that side of it, which is like the selfish part of investing in yourself. But like I say, it's also good to impart knowledge on other people, and
it must be great seeing people develop and gain confidence, and you are part of making them feel that way.
It's a two-way thing, isn't it? I guess it's a two-way thing, and that is satisfying.
Yeah, and I think coaching comes in almost like two parts. So you have different people that you coach, obviously with different goals, and everybody's reasons for starting martial arts is different. So when I'm coaching my fighters, I'm almost like a different coach to when I'm coaching my beginners, for example.
Yeah.
The good thing about my gym...
That's cool that you can adapt.
Yeah, you have to adapt.
I think that's a sign of a good coach.
Yeah. And I like to have my fighters work with like novices as well. So I have 2 back to basic classes, Mondays and Thursdays, and the fighters come to all of that, and people who don't compete come to that as well. And most of the time in those classes, I get the fighters to work with someone who's like a novice or who's not as experienced. Yeah, it forces my fighters to coach. So I tell them, here's your chance to coach. So like think about breaking down why you're doing certain things, and when I tell them that, sometimes they think about it and they're like, I have no idea, like I don't know why I'm doing it. Exactly. And they come to me and they're like, I don't know what to say. So true. Yeah, but that's a very good way of like keeping yourself in check. And I've noticed as well, I'm not the type of coach that sits down and studies opponents too much, because I feel like that is important when you hit a certain level. And you could sit down with your fighter who's always also experienced, and you could have discussions about game plan and stuff like that. But when you have a young team of fighters,
for sure,
there's so much that they need to develop in themselves. I'd rather put my focus in that.
That's a really good point. And I think like that's kind of the difference between amateur and pro. Is amateur, you're banking experience and stuff, but pro, by the time, like I feel like in MMA, by the time you're pro, you should have the ability to like implement a game plan. Like, so you've worked on that for 6 to 8 weeks, and it doesn't always go like that, but you know, you should have the ability to sort of direct a fight in a certain way, especially if you're in the driver's seat. Like, you should be able to like guide that into the direction of the things you've worked on. Amateur, you haven't really got that element. You haven't figured out like the competition aspect and that yet, and like you say, you're still filling in a lot of grey areas and things like that. So I do think you're right. I think there's a difference. Yeah,
and I've always have the conversations with my fighters before they go in the ring, and I tell them, here's the structure of how we're going to run the corner. So you come back, the first thing is obviously get your breath, catch your breath, get some oxygen in. The second thing I always ask them is how they're feeling. And I tell them, when I ask you how you're feeling, I want legit answers. I don't want the bullshit of no, I'm feeling great. Okay. When deep down you're not feeling
great. And then you respond to that real time.
So like if you come back to the corner and you're telling me, I'm feeling shit, I'd rather know that you're feeling shit, so I could say the right things to make you not feel shit. So one of my fighters, he had this fight, and the first round he got dropped with a flying knee, and it was a beautiful flying knee. And 15 seconds into the fight, like a scissor knee, boom, she got dropped, and I was like, fuck, this cannot end like this. So he got up, he's a soldier, he bowed through, but he got up, and he got his legs, he took loads of clean leg kicks in that round.
Yeah.
He came back to the round and
weathered the storm.
Yeah, and he came back to the round and in the corner, and I was like, "How you feeling?" He goes, "Oh, my leg is fucked." And I was like, "There's two ways to look at it here. I could either say to him, 'Oh shit, shall we switch your stance?' Oh, I was obviously paying attention. I knew it wasn't injured; it was just pain. And I just chose the latter. I was like, fuck your legs. We're in a fucking fight. Your leg is gonna be hurt because you just got fucking kicked in the leg.
Yeah.
Now you're either gonna bitch about it, or shut the fuck up thinking about it, and just buy on your gum shield and fucking fight." And that woke him up. And after I spoke to him after the fight, he was like, "If you didn't say that to me, I would just do well on that leg." He came back, won the second round, and it was a very, very close final round. And he was limping in the final.
Man, and that's the thing. That's why it's never just you in there, is it? You know, because you've got influence like from your corner and stuff.
Of course, it requires teamwork and a lot of fighters
and trust as well.
Trust,
a lot of trust.
It's very important for fighters to understand that. Is a teamwork. Like you have an obligation to work with your coach. Yeah. Your coach is not the only person obliged to work with you. If you don't give some back, you're not going to get anywhere. Yeah. So this is where before we go on the mic, I was saying to you that sometimes I feel like I'm harsh on my fighters, but it's necessary because I expect from them to work.
You only want them to grow at the end of the day. You're not doing it just to, like I say, berate them for the sake of it. Like, why would you do that? Like, you want to see, if you're going to give them harsh criticism, it's because you feel like it's going to better them.
Of course.
And I feel like as a fighter, you should be receptive of them comments and them
If
critiques.
you're not, you're the wrong sport.
If it's someone that like doesn't have a clue what they're doing, kind of comes back to what we were saying earlier, then you not take it with a pinch of salt, or maybe give them shit back because they don't know what they're talking about. Exactly. But you know, if it's coming from someone like yourself, you know, your coach, who's got that experience, then you take it on board. You know what I mean?
I think it's so important to be able to take criticism and not be sensitive about it.
Yeah.
But what is one thing you dislike about coaching, if there's anything? Or it's maybe you've not figured it out just yet.
I think, and this has only happened like a couple of times, because most people want to be there, you know what I mean? They've made the time, but it's kind of when like someone's going through the motions, you know what I mean? It's like, I know people have bad days and stuff, but it's like, if you turn up, you at least expect like a bit of commitment to wanting to do better, do you know what I mean? So maybe, because it's hard to kind of G someone along if they're not receiving the information too well, kind of like what we just talked about, do you know what I mean? So it's a two-way street, I think.
And I think energy is given out to people around you as well.
Yeah, I do think that energy is like a huge thing, man. Like you can just feel it in different scenarios. Like I was coaching at an interclub the other day, and I felt knackered like coming out of that after like, you know, being there like 8-9 hours, just because you're around like all that kind of like nervous energy, you know, like in the warm-up area. And I don't know, there's just something about that like just like penetrates through you, know what I mean? It's like it takes it out of you and you get a bit like edgy and stuff, and it's like it's a strange one, isn't it? It's a strange one.
You can't expect the fighters or people to come in good moods every day, but
no, you can't at all. I'm not I'm not talking necessarily about classes as such. I guess I was talking more of like a one-to-one type situation.
Yes, that's even more. What is one-to-one? I think I just have an expectation of just. It's hard to just leave all your problems out the door, because that's not how it works.
It is.
But just be thoughtful and conscious of other people around you. Like if I partner somebody up to do some glove drills, for example, and one of them is half asleep, it's like. Now you're not just you've been detrimental to the other person's growth, and that's not really on, because you don't turn up to work and just be like, oh, today I can't be out, so I'm not going to answer any calls. Just not how it works. You have a job to do, right?
Of course. And I think that coming back to that thing of like, you've got to accept criticism, especially if you're going to be, you've got to be coachable, haven't you? That's the thing. Like, being coachable is a bit of a skill. You've got to be a good listener, and you've kind of like not got to make excuses for things. If someone says to you, do this, and you go, oh yeah, I'm not doing that because of this.
That's the worst. I hate that.
Like I've had that a few times. It's like you're getting in the way of your own progress because you're making these excuses. You're blocking the progress, right? It's like, just I'm telling you, like, as a professional fighter, that like this isn't quite right. And I'm not saying it because I've seen it once. I've seen you do it maybe 10 times. It's trying to iron it out. You know what I mean? It's trying to fix it.
Yeah, I think just it comes down to personalities as well, because some people always have an answer for everything.
Yeah.
And sometimes like I know, because anybody could have an excuse, 100 excuse for anything they don't do or whatever, but sometimes it's about just shutting up and just listening.
Do you think like martial arts is really good for that, like almost like molding people into that type of character where they are like, because you can't really, I feel like you can't get to like a decent level if you don't have them, if you have them like characters, should we say, like deficiencies. You know what I mean?
No, I think it's so important.
Whereas in football, maybe you could have a bit of, in a team sport, you can have a bit of a chip on your shoulder, you can blame other people a little bit and blah blah blah. You have to accept full accountability as a fighter, because if you know, it all comes down to you.
Yeah, and I think what you said was so important. I think that's one of my favorite things about martial arts is just making sure you're putting people in positions where they could follow instructions.
Yeah.
So, for example, my nephew is 6 and my nieces, they both go to kickboxing. And yesterday, Uzi teaches them the Friday classes, and he had like loads of kids the other day. And my sister said to me, "Oh, Aaron wasn't listening. He was messing around, doing all of that. And when he wants to listen, he's really good.
Yeah.
But he gets easily distracted.
Yeah.
And I had a conversation with him yesterday, and I was like, you've been there the longest technically, because this is your uncle's gym. So when you're there, you have I'm putting an expectation on you to act in a way as a role model. So you're supposed to be the one setting examples for the other kids. So if you're there messing around, that's almost disrespectful to yourself, because you're disrespecting me. And I could tell, even though he's only 6, he was trying to make sense of what I was saying.
Sure.
And this morning, so Emily does 1-to-1 classes with him on Sundays, and this morning she messaged me, she goes, "Oh, Aaron did great today." And I was like, something must have like got in. Not all of it, but something must have got in. And I think for me, I've always been, when I was in school, I was almost like a teacher's pet. When I was in primary school, I was always the kid that whatever the teacher said, I was like, "Yes, sir." Like I just do that. I just always had that. And one thing I loved about coming to Predators was because when I was at AFK, because I was fighting at such a high level, it was almost like an expectation from me and everybody else that was champions, expectations of us to just know what we were like doing and we were talking about, and people were looking at you for answers. When I came to Predators, because nobody knew me there, I was not like the man. I wasn't Yusuf, the professional fighter who's got 2 ISK belts. I was just the guy that came in, and I loved being just a nobody, like just being in the background, just listening and just being treated like everybody else. And that was great, because I really missed being like almost like new at it. Do you know what I mean? Like you looking for answers, and not everybody looking for you for answers. And that was really good. And I think that's what makes good fighters sometimes. Is someone who's able to just put their egos to the side and just say, listen, like even till this day, if I go to a class, you could ask my old coach Farad, like when he was breaking down techniques, I was probably the most attentive person. Like I would like to think I was, because I made so much effort just to listen to everything that was said. Because I just felt like I had a responsibility to listen, even though I knew how to throw a push kick, for example. There might be something that I will just pick up from. And I think that's come from just doing martial arts since I was young. Because now when I teach kids and when I teach like teenagers especially, because the sport is so out there, they see the side of it that is all nice and glamorous and fun, and they focus on that so much. It got to a point where some of them just think they're superstars before they even start doing the sport. Like they come in with the attitude of like as if they figured it all out. But they've not seen the dark side of things. And then when you start showing them the little bit of the dark side, you realize they're not really made for this. So I think I was kind of lucky in a way where we didn't have all of that shit. We just kind of wanted to do it for the sport.
So like with my last opponent, like where he was up 5-0 and stuff, and he had like a huge following. Like on Instagram, he had a lot of followers and things like that. And he was doing a lot of like what I'd just call like showy stuff, you know, like look really like rapid shadow boxing, but not really stuff that you could like implement in an actual fight, if you know what I mean. And
just good for the clicks.
Good for the clicks, and then doing things like like he was in like the bin bag type thing, like, you know, like losing water weight before it was even weight cut week.
Yes.
You know, and like just thousands of likes and stuff. And it was like, to me, it was just, I was watching all that and just thinking, this looks great, but how much like real application does it have? You know what I mean? And that kind of gave me confidence, like going into that fight, because it's like, yeah, you know, we can all try to look good, but it's harder to actually.
You're quietly working in the background.
Yeah, the hard bit is doing the work, isn't it?
That side of things is also important, though, isn't it? Because you need to be able to promote.
Yeah, yourself. True, and maybe that's where I lack, and maybe where, like, to you, mate, thanks for having me on, because maybe, like, you know, this is the stuff that I probably do need to get better at, to be honest.
But if you had to pick, it's obviously good to go your route. Like, you think about the game first and up your skills, and then if you're good at that, the other things will come naturally.
Yeah, because and that's the thing. Naturally, I think it's important. Like I know you're big on like authenticity and stuff, and I'm kind of like that as well. And I kind of would like a bit of a rise in like publicity, say, to come off the back of like authentic.
Yes.
Things that I'm doing, you know, like
don't go create the reels that everybody else created.
Like I was saying about you know, we've got some footage from that last fight, just like little documentary type clips. I'll put them up at some point. It's like, it's so sick because it's just so real, so in the moment. Like we're having a laugh in the back, or they're like post-fight reactions where we've come out and we're, you know, it's like you forget the camera's there, and like I would like to just put out stuff like that. I think, you know, because the harder you try to be sick or cool, whatever it is, the more you're gonna fail.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I love those videos. I love those clips. Yeah, I've been enjoying them. The one with Tom that comes out when he has a gas spoon. Yeah, I like.
I've got a few more of them. I'll roll a few more of them out.
Yeah, for sure.
He's got some good stuff.
It's great stuff, man, because it shows the real behind the scenes. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Nothing faked.
That's it.
So what do you think the ultimate goal is for you in the sport?
I mean, like, I know I've got into it late and stuff, but I am like sort of draining my soul of like every last bit of effort. I want to go like all the way. I want to get into the UFC. And you know, why would you want anything other than that, really? Because it's like the risks are so grave, you know, the risks to your health and stuff. I feel like obviously all the things we've talked about outweigh it, all the benefits, but unless you're taking it and you're all in, you know, it's not worth doing. So I am all in, and I just want to keep competing, keep winning, and see where we end up.
Yeah, step at a time, right?
Yeah, one step at a time.
So what I'm gonna do now, Chris, just to move away from fighting for a little bit.
Go for it, man.
Yeah, just some random questions.
Right. Okay.
So the first question: what's one thing on your bucket list that you haven't done that you want to do?
I think, like I said, like I'll watch a lot of rock climbing documentaries, and I think because I can see parallels with fighting, like massive parallels, and that is one fear of mine. I think is like heights. Like I've never really been into heights, so it's like there's something there to conquer. You know what I mean? Another part of my character or personality, or whatever it is, that's scared of something that I can like try and override. So that would be. I think that's something I'd like to give a go in the future. Maybe like once the fighting's over and done with, because I can't imagine it's as. I imagine it's tough, but it's not going to be as sort of damaging on the body as like, you know, fighting at like. I imagine I could probably climb at 45, but I wouldn't want to be fighting at 45. Do you know what I mean?
I think you're right.
So that would be like a bucket list thing, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
You're just a fitness freak, aren't you? Really?
Yeah, mate. Yeah.
What is one thing that you're most thankful for?
Yeah, the people around me, the support network is unreal. Like my sort of strength and conditioning or functional patterns coach, Chris, like I say, advanced basics, everyone at Predators, Gav, you know, everyone on the team, Tom, Adam, Will, we've all got each other's backs in like a really genuine way, and it's like there's always a bit of self-serving, but I feel like it's all comes from like the best place possible, and I think that's really important. It's all genuine, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same with like when I say support base, I mean like my friends as well. You know, family, like my mum and dad, my brother, fully behind what I do. Got a lot of friends that like travel up from like Portsmouth, you know, which isn't easy to come because fighting in the northwest, they've got to mission it up here, you know, for like 24 hours, head back down and stuff. So just all the support, man.
Is your dad super happy with super proud of you?
Yeah, he is, man. He is, and he knows like this is kind of like my baby, if you like. Yes. And he doesn't stick his oar in anymore, should we say. And I think there's an understanding there, and I am thankful to him as well, and to my mum for getting me into judo, because would I be here now talking to you if it wasn't for that? Like I say, because I didn't have loads of drive at the start, in a way, you know, like I said, them college years, dropping out, blah blah blah. It's like they did put me on, and they were always like extremely hard working. Like my mum had a couple of jobs and stuff and used to work day and night, and it's like that rubs off, I think. So I am thankful, as much as like I say he used to give me hard time. I'm also extremely thankful for like the drive that he's given me.
As you grow up, you realize that your parents were just humans like you. And you realize that everything they've done was with good intentions, and that's the main important thing. And I think it's good to be pushy with kids sometimes on certain things, you know, not too much, but like for example, my nephew sometimes doesn't want to go to the class. I'll make sure he goes to the class. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. He'll thank me for it one day.
Yeah, one day he'll be like 30 in his 30s.
Like if he never,
it'll be worth it.
If he never fights, I don't care.
I
don't care. But like I just think just being able to follow somebody outside of,
if he can carry whatever, all them good habits, all them things he's learned from like training into other aspects of his life, then it's worth it, innit? Like you say, you don't have to be a fighter, but you know, if you can apply them, that discipline, that routine, and that, then perfect.
For sure. What's your favorite movie of all time?
Oh man, that's a tough one.
I'd
say I probably watch like Blood Diamond like once a year. That's a good one.
I like that. I haven't seen it in a long time actually.
Yeah, I'll stick it on tonight.
Is that the one where Leonardo has like a Aussie accent?
It's like South African, isn't it? Yeah, like a dodgy South African accent. Yeah, but it's obviously like Hans Zimmer. Anything that Hans Zimmer's got his name to.
Yeah.
You know Hans Zimmer, right?
Yeah.
Of course you do. You can't.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah, it's a sick one.
Who's your favorite athlete?
I'm probably gonna go fighting realistically, because that's what I watch the most of. I love like someone like Max Holloway, man. I don't think I've got an outright favourite, but like someone like that's up there. I love like how humble he is, how light he is as a person. You know what I mean? He just carries himself, sick conduct, and just unbelievable.
Just like a chill guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he's so chill.
Plays his games, looks after his family.
I remember after my last fight. Obviously like emotions, like running high or whatever, bit emotionally unstable, do you know what I mean, because it's like everything's redlining, and me and my wife were watching Korean Zombie versus Max Holloway the day after, and when he'd done his retirement thing, like we were just both crying our eyes out, like and, you know, like it just felt like everything was so raw at that time, like especially after like performing the night before, we were just in bits, like when everyone's singing like Zombie.
That was the emotional moment. That gave me goosebumps.
Yeah, definitely.
When he comes out, and that's his girlfriend that he hugs, or his wife, and they're hugging for ages, but everyone's singing it.
They're amazing scenes.
It's the moments you live for, right?
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite athlete outside of fighting, or do you not pay attention too much?
I don't really pay attention to too much outside fighting, man, really, to be honest. Like I say, I am super dialed in these days, and if I'm not training, I'm sort of watching fights. I love studying fights, and I don't get a lot of time to sit down and watch TV, so the little time I do, I'm like studying. I'm not really tuned in onto, like, don't really follow the football or anything and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't really have, I'd say, anyone that I'm
so demanding that you just have to be all in.
Yeah.
What's your favorite technique?
Wow, that's a good one.
or move even, you know?
I would say probably, I'd have to say the body kick.
Roundhouse?
That's what I've had the most success with. Yeah, roundhouse. Yeah, either maybe whether it's a switch kick or like normal roundhouse. I think like I've always been able to do absolute damage with that, and it just seems to. I like the way you can throw it in like boxing range as well. You know, I feel like. Do you feel like for the head kick, like you've got to be maybe like a touch sort of further back?
I mean, it's really hard to pull it off from like a body shot position, but if you do, it's dangerous because they never see you coming. High kicks from there, but it's hard. You need to have more range. But that kind of surprises me. I thought you might have said a choke or something. But it doesn't surprise me. But
the thing is, it's just like what I'm looking for is like something that I use a lot when you ask that question, and it's like my game just shifts so much all the time. I'm not really someone that like picks a technique and says like that's my thing and like really like hones in on that. I like to just like round my game off, and I'm constantly putting my awareness into different areas, so it's always shifting, you know what I mean? So when you said that, I was thinking my favourite technique, like what do I use a lot, but it's always shifting around, if you see what I mean.
It would. Like next month if I ask you, probably be a different one.
Yeah, probably would.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee straight up.
I thought it might be that.
No hesitations there.
And the final one that I always end the interview with, and I think it'll be good to hear from different people because I don't have different things to say. If you had to, what's one advice you'd give to up and coming fighters or anybody that wants to get into martial arts?
Be proactive. Don't wait for things to come to you. Like a lot of my sponsors that like have really helped me and are like really good to me have come from like me going out and like, you know, sending off like emails and trying to look for people that potentially might want to get on board with the journey, or you know, even I've had like bad experience with management where I've actually realised like I'm better off just approaching promotions myself, and if you're reasonable and they don't feel like that you're going to mess them around or whatever and you're sort of true to your word, they'll work with you, you know what I mean? So, and you'll get opportunities that way. No one cares about your career more than you. That's one thing I would say. So if you've got a manager or whatever, you know, they might be decent, but they're in it for the money. Let's be honest. It's like, whereas you're in it. You're going to do it for yourself for all the right reasons. So just push for things. Push.
I think that's a very good advice, and I think just on back of that as well. I think you probably just need a manager when you hit a certain level. Yeah. You know, like, but if you have like a good coach, they're usually your manager.
Yeah, I think maybe because we're speaking now and it's like at the stage I'm at, you know, I can make things sort of happen for myself. Yeah. But yeah, I do appreciate that down the line, like I am probably gonna need a manager. But yeah, just that thing of like, put yourself out there, and the worst that can happen is people say no. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? No. Like,
so moving.
So what? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good advice, and I'm so glad that we're having this conversation under these circumstances after your win.
Yeah, so I think raw, fresh.
I'm just like I said, I was just super happy for you, and I'm super happy, and I know the training and the hard work and how dialed in you are.
Yeah,
so
thank you, man.
I'm gonna be obviously.
I'm glad that's recognising that
for sure.
leads through.
I think every time I've trained with you, you've always given 100%, and again, from the outside looking in, you seem to be like the ideal student just from the way you operate, your mindset, and there's only positives that could come from that. Because if you're able to find the positive, I hate using the word positive because it makes it not even positive, just realistic about things. You know what I mean? Sometimes you go through shit in order to learn shit that you could apply in future and be a better person and do better. And it seems like you've kind of gone through that with this small period of time. You had like this massive win. It seems to be that you're in a good place, and I think the main thing to take from now is just enjoy the training. And just don't be just be wary that the same shit might happen again, but because you've gone through it, you know that you can handle it.
Yeah, thank you, mate. And to be honest, like, you wouldn't have it any other way. Do you know what I mean? Like these crazy like ups and down stories and stuff, Yeah, I mean, at the time they're intense, but when you look back, it's like what a way to spend your life. You know, like having the.
It makes for good stories. It's made this podcast really interesting.
Bro. Yeah, exactly. So.
But yeah, Chris, I really appreciate you coming in.
Yeah,
I'm glad we had this
pleasure.
conversation.
Yeah, thanks.
We'll do it again.
Yeah, I'd love to, bro. Yeah, wicked.